There's quite a bit happening around the world, but there's quite a bit more domestically here to talk about. Now, typically we try to focus on global issues to keep you updated on events that are going to impact you, but there's a lot happening that's going to be felt by everyone here domestically. Now, close to home, we have the eastern port shutdowns due to the longshoremen striking, and of course, the horrifying result of Hurricane Helene, especially on those in North Carolina. Now, internationally, we have more proof China is making weapons for Russia, a potential city-destroying Russian bomb floating off the coast of England, and another chapter in the escalating war of Israel. We're also going to have another great giveaway. So there's a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump in. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. I recently received a direct message via Instagram from a subscriber directly impacted in the disaster in North Carolina. It read, "We just got out of Asheville, North Carolina. We lived in Biltmore Village on the Swannanoa River. I've been watching your channel for 2 years, and almost every prep we have came into play. Thank you." He also continued by saying, "We settled in Charlotte. Solar generators, lights, water filter, jet boil cache, and dry stored food made a world of difference, as did car with enough gas. Thanks again." Now, first of all, let me say that I'm thrilled that our videos and content were able to help someone somewhere. This is honestly what I live for and what propels me. I've been getting a lot of messages that things are not going so well on the ground there, and this was simply not anticipated at this level. One of the staff that works for TJ Morse of Bear Independent, he reached out to me asking for me to spread the word about their efforts to help those communities. If you're not familiar with TJ, he and his team, they go into disaster-stricken areas and provide relief on the ground to help people recover. If you are interested in learning more, I'm going to put a link to their website. It's Grindstone Ministries, and I'll put a specific link to a page where you can learn how to, find out what you can specifically do to provide support, and even if you want to go and provide help with the team. And again, I'll post a direct link below if you'd like to either go or send support. Now, his organization, it's a nonprofit, and they just help. As you can see, it's not always the far-flung and sometimes imaginary SHTF scenarios that can strike. We are increasingly seeing that it's not just the worst-case scenarios that we as preppers conjure up when we use the phrase SHTF, as much as it is just natural disasters like this that should really keep us preparing. And yes, societies, they can collapse. Major events can impact us all. But unfortunately, extreme weather events are becoming more and more common in their intensity, and they're increasing. We'll discuss North Carolina and Hurricane Helene in a moment. Also, be sure to stick around to the end, as I'm going to share some projects that I'm working on my property, along with some issues that I've recently run into with a break-in on our homestead as I'm developing it. And we've also picked up a few new mascots that I'll be adding to the channel here pretty soon. So let's start off by looking at man-made disasters that are brewing now that can impact the whole country. Port closures. In a recent poll of our community, we asked how concerned were you about the East Coast port strike? And 80% of you indicated that you are either very concerned or somewhat concerned. And that's a collectively high enough response for us to prioritize this topic. Let's examine how we got here, what could be impacted, and finally, we're going to explore some real solutions to lessen the effects of this man-made supply chain disruption. Now, the current threat to the supply chain is primarily driven by a pay dispute between the International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA, and the United States Maritime Alliance, or USMX. Now, their 6-year contract expired on September 30th of 2024. In negotiations, they reached a deadlock over wages, and unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, the strike has already started. And this is the first time they've had this in the port since 1977. Now, despite the potential economic fallout, the government has taken a hands-off approach, with President Biden stating that the federal powers will not be used to block or intervene in the strike. Now, this situation really underscores the necessity of contingency planning for such disruptions. The port strike is poised to significantly impact the United States economy, affecting a wide range of products and industries. Pharmaceuticals, apparel, furniture, and food items are among the most vulnerable. And over 90% of the containerized imports and exports of the United States pharmaceuticals, they pass through the affected ports, while significant volumes of apparel and furniture are also handled by these facilities. Food supply chains are going to be especially disrupted, with seafood, coffee, imported fruits, and vegetables facing high risk of shortages. And the strike could also lead to price increases for these products as well as for hard alcohol shipments, especially whiskey, vodka, rum, and tequila. Did I get your attention? I know some of you are sweating just hearing that last sentence. Now, from a food supply perspective, products like seafood, coffee, and imported fruits and vegetables are at a high risk of disruption. And while some retailers may have stockpiled supplies to prevent immediate shortages, perishable items like bananas will eventually spoil, and frozen seafood can only be stored for so long. And as these stockpiles run out, the basic law of supply and demand will take over, leading to rising prices and shortages. Notably, 75% of the United States bananas, 90% of imported cherries, 85% of canned goods, 82% of hot peppers, and 80% of chocolate, they all come through ports handled by the International Longshoremen's Association, according to the Farm Bureau. Now, about a year ago, we warned here on the channel about rising olive oil prices due to natural disasters and farming disputes. And since then, prices have doubled. Now, with the port strike now, we could see another spike as much of our olive oil comes from Mediterranean countries like Spain, Italy, and Greece. A strike could lead to shortages, especially of high-quality extra virgin oils. Interestingly, Georgia has emerged as a new source of olive oil, with its southern regions providing well-suited for olive cultivation. And although still a young industry, Georgia's production has grown rapidly in recent years. You might want to consider sourcing your olive oil from Georgia, which has experienced a resurgence in production. Now, the economic impact extends far beyond disruptions to a few products. It also affects exports. And depending on the strike's duration, both consumers and farmers are going to feel the effects, especially in those relying on the affected ports to export containerized cargoes of soybeans and poultry. You might even see a price decrease for these two protein sources, as domestic supply will swell if exports do not occur. And there's a larger economic impact from the strike that you will feel regardless of whether your banana supply is disrupted. The strike could cost the United States economy $5 billion daily, affecting a wide range of industries. A 1-week shutdown could require a 6-week recovery period, causing prolonged disruptions and increased costs. And it's often not cost effective to reroute ships to the West Coast ports, so goods may sit off the coast, often rotting or going bad. And shipping costs are going to rise everywhere, leading to higher prices for most goods, adding to existing frustrations with housing and food inflation. Don't underestimate the political aspect of this during an election season. What you will hear in the media may attempt to assign blame to one party or another for this labor dispute, distracting from the necessary preparation for these types of events. There's also the very real impact stemming from the frenzy surrounding this event. I know this is anecdotal, but my sister lives in the Dallas area, and she recently reached out to inform me of runs on stores in her vicinity. And we've observed similar behavior in areas prepping for Hurricane Helene, which I'll address shortly. I guess it's time to load up on toilet paper again. That's the assessment if this strike lasts for 3 weeks or less. After that, we're going to need to start talking about an even greater loss of jobs and a return of double-digit inflation, so we're going to be watching this closely. The solution to avoiding desperation during such events is to prepare. And while you can't grow your own bananas, or if you were dehydrating or freezing bananas as part of your supplies, you wouldn't notice a shortage. You probably can't grow coffee beans in your climate, but if you drink coffee on a regular basis, you should already have some in your prepping supplies. If you had enough prepping supplies of these items to last 3 weeks, you would likely make it comfortably through this labor dispute disaster. We live in an age where we have moved away from having instant, uninterrupted access to what we need to survive. Our pantries, they've shrunk to mere cabinets in modern construction. And our grocery stores barely have enough food on hand to serve a community for more than 3 days. And disasters that block roads or halt port traffic only reveal the incredible fragility of our modern food supply chain. And when that 3-day supply cannot be replenished, then what? That's when you should be able to turn to your 3-week supplies to get you through. So are you experiencing any impact yet? Even with supplies and inventories absorbing the shutdown of resupplies, stores are likely hiking their prices and panic buying is occurring. Are you feeling any of that? How long do you think this dispute will continue? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll also link to a video at the end of this one that examines panic buying and what you can do to stay ahead of it. Thanks to Jackery for sponsoring this YouTube ad-free video. Hurricane Helene has recently impacted multiple states, leaving many without power for days, weeks, or even longer. Backup power is becoming easier to integrate without needing expensive contractors or permits. With something as simple as a transfer switch, you can plug in devices like Jackery's 2000 Plus, allowing you to power many of your home's critical appliances such as lights, refrigerators, electric stoves, and other items that you'd want to have if the grid were to go down. This unit can output 3000 watts continuously, and when tied together with another 2000 Plus model, you can get a whopping 6000 watts at 240 volts. Now, additionally, you can easily add on batteries whenever you want to expand the storage capacity up to 24 kilowatt hours. You can charge these units from 0 to 80% in 100 minutes from an AC source. And the batteries can handle 4,000 charge cycles or 10 years of daily use, and they possess a UPS functionality switching over in under 20 milliseconds. And they can be controlled remotely via their app, and they have a 5-year warranty. If you want to check out this unit, I'll post a link in the description and comments section below. Helena. The footage and stories from Asheville, North Carolina are truly horrific. When Hurricane Helena made landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast, heavy rain was already falling in western North Carolina due to a stalled front pulling moisture north. Now, rain persists through Friday as the storm moved north, leading to severe flooding in mountain communities. In just a few days, Busick received nearly 3 feet of rain, Spruce Pine 2 feet, Hendersonville and Seven Devils almost 22 inches, while most areas received between a foot and a foot and a half. Now, this historic flooding caused rivers to overflow their banks, resulting in mudslides as the ground became oversaturated. And few communities have the infrastructure to really handle such deluges. And we need to discuss Helena and briefly touch on Beryl. And while we could compare death tolls and power outages, such comparisons really only highlight that our infrastructure is not equipped for these types of events. Similarly, comparing rainfall amounts shows that these storms brought unprecedented precipitation to inland areas. The real key insight from these storms is that they are becoming more widespread, extending further inland, pulling in more moisture, and dumping in regions ill-prepared for such deluges. This is more indicative of a new norm rather than isolated incidents. And while some may debate whether this year's conditions are meteorological anomalies or signs of longer-term weather pattern changes, we really have to recognize these as natural disasters, emphasizing the need for preparedness and emergency readiness. Both of these storms were uppercuts to the United States in that they didn't slam into the eastern seaboard. Instead, they took a long route through the extremely warm waters of the Gulf and then swooped in on a north to slightly northeast trajectory. Now, in some cases, these hurricanes pulled even more moisture into them from other parts of the country once they made landfall, and this caused them to sustain their precipitation strength for longer. So, if 2 is the start of a pattern, you should draw a line from Louisiana to New York, and if you're 2 states to the left or to the right of that transecting line, you should prepare for these types of extreme events in the future. Excessive rainfall or high winds could take out your energy, your roads, your water and communications infrastructure, and it might be some time before rescuers or the government can get to you. Events like these should emphasize the need to establish in advance evacuation routes and a bug-out bag. Far from the storm surges, flash floods, mudslides, and swollen rivers flowing over the riverbanks, there's a domino effect of disasters spilling far beyond these directly impacted zones. We're seeing that now. And when these disasters strike, your experience as a victim depends on your preparedness. Having at least a 3-week food supply is going to help you fare far better when roads are impassable. A strong community can better support you when needed, and having a disaster plan, evacuation route, or bug-out bag increases your chances of hunkering down or leaving before conditions worsen. The takeaway from these events is to assess and enhance your preparedness. You might be tired of hearing terms like historic or record-breaking, but rather than debating the causes, I would encourage you to focus on preparing for future disasters. We encourage our subscribers to examine historical weather events in their region and really consider how they would cope today without power, food, or water. You need to use this reflection to develop your own emergency plan. That way, when the next big storm affects your area, you're going to be ready. And to all our viewers in the hardest hit areas of Helena, we hope you're managing and that recovery is swift. And for those that have followed our channel and advice on preparedness, I would encourage you to share in the comments below how your preparations have helped you and what lessons you can impart to others. Let us know in the comments section below. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you'd like to do something to help these folks, our neighbors in North Carolina and in the impacted areas, I would invite you to check out Grindstone Ministries' efforts to get boots and supplies on the ground. Again, I'll post a link in the description and comments section below. Giveaway. This week's winner will receive a Camelback water bottle with an integrated 2-stage live straw. All you have to do to participate in the giveaway is just simply comment on this video, give it a thumbs up, and complete the giveaway form linked in the description section below. This information will only be accessible to our team. And what we'll do is we'll use a random selection tool, then we'll choose a winner from the entrants, and then reach out via the email that you provided on the submitted form. So congrats to our last giveaway winner for an ultralight emergency sleeping bag with hood, Stacy Skinner. We're going to get that sent right away to you. International news. So those were the threats and disasters that are closer to home that we've been facing. But the international threats are still ones that we have to watch for carefully. These are more long range and further away, at least for the moment. But they can easily spin up into larger conflicts with a far greater reach and impact, which is why we continue to watch them. I'm going to cover the big ones as briefly as I can here. Now, it's clear that Israel will be in a ground war with Hezbollah and Lebanon into the foreseeable future. The Pentagon announced Monday that the United States is deploying a few thousand troops to the Middle East to enhance security and defend Israel if needed, following Israel's border raids into Lebanon, and at the request of Israel to serve as a deterrent amid rising tensions. Now, the current estimated amount of United States forces in the regions is around 43,000, and significant naval assets are assisting in the missile defense network. Now, these United States forces, they act as a buffer zone because Iran's proxy armies mostly want to avoid drawing the United States into a direct confrontation in the region or with Iran. Iran's now 500 plus missiles fired at Israel in 2 separate waves this year have been negated. And likely whether a tenuous peace or ceasefire will be attained will depend greatly upon whether those proxy armies of Iran stop indiscriminately firing missiles into Israel. Hopefully, some ceasefire will be achieved before this draws into more countries or reaches a nuclear or biological threat level. If you recall the Beirut port explosion on August 4th of 2020, that was caused when a large amount of ammonium nitrate improperly stored in a warehouse at the port detonated. And the explosion resulted in widespread destruction, killing over 200 people, injuring more than 6,500, and leaving around 300,000 homeless. Now, I bring this up because a Russian ship with 7 times that amount of ammonium nitrate on board has been trying to dock at NATO ports. And countries are leery about allowing a warring country that has threatened the West with nuclear annihilation on numerous occasions to dock a ticking time bomb in their ports. And can you blame them? In short, a damaged Malta flag cargo ship, the Ruby, carrying 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate from Russia, was spotted near a military base in Norway after having been ordered to leave the area due to safety concerns for nearby residents. And the Ruby had initially docked in this area seeking refuge from a storm, but was ordered to depart after fears grew over its hazardous cargo, which is 7 times larger, again, as we explained a second ago, than the amount that caused the 2020 Beirut explosion. The ship then headed to Andenes in Norway, and authorities are monitoring its movement amidst rising tensions between NATO and Russia, with Lithuania denying it permission to dock for repairs at the port there. Now, it's currently anchored off the coast of the UK, and the best outcomes with this would be to either offload it at sea or send it back to Russia for repair, but I can understand why allies really don't want it docking in their ports. We'll keep this on our radar. Also from Russia, the news is breaking in the mainstream media that we've covered here for a while. China is directly supplying Russia with weapons of war to fight in Ukraine. And Russia has established a secret project in China to develop and produce long-range attack drones for use in the Ukraine war. Now, the project involves IE Kapul, working with Chinese specialists. And within 8 months, the project in China would be ready to produce a Chinese-designed REM-1 attack UAV with a payload of 400 kilograms. Now, 2 different European intelligence sources says this system would be similar to the United States Reaper drone. And the White House has expressed deep concern, while China has denied any knowledge of the project, but the receipts are stacking up, as they say. Either China is unaware of their state businesses dealing with Russia, or this is a state-sponsored conduit for Chinese advanced technology and weapons to resupply Russia. Will we see these on the battlefield soon, especially if Iran's supply of suicide drones to Russia is repurposed in that country's war with Israel? We'll continue to monitor this. Now, there are concerns about how long Russia can sustain this war posture. Piecing together a motivated and powerful fighting force from conscripts, splice together Soviet-era equipment, and unreliable source equipment from North Korea, Iran, or China is not likely to lead to a swift victory for them. It can lead to desperation on Putin's part. Now, every time I say that, the comments section inevitably lights up with pro-Putin bots, but that's okay. I call this how I see it and as impartially as I can. And it's clear from Russia's most recent tests of their nuclear-capable Satan missiles that their technological readiness to wage a larger war or even sustain the one they are in may be questionable. Now, the recent attempted show of force was an attempted launch of the RS-28 Sarmat ICBM. This nuclear-capable long-range missile, the pride of Russia, exploded and created a crater out of the launch site. In the history of this missile, there have been 5 launches. And the first one was successful, and the next 4 all failed. These kind of blunders, however, raise the desperation of Putin. They make him want to put on a big show of something to show he's still in control and still wields all the power. That's also why I would be concerned with the Russian cargo of 20,000 tons of low-tech explosive material anywhere near my ports, as I mentioned earlier. We'll continue to monitor these larger international threats for you and alert our subscribers if anything worsens. In the meantime, I would encourage you to focus on your preps close to home. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've been working on my homestead, a piece of property as I've shared with you, I bought a couple of months ago. And last week, I unfortunately had a break-in. I believe it was either Monday or Tuesday night, I believe Monday night. Someone broke in. And the next day when I got to the house, I realized after reviewing security footage that someone had been walking around the property. Now, of course, the question is, why didn't the security system go off? Murphy's Law. It was the one time that I forgot to arm the alarm system. Since then, I've obviously set automation so that it arms itself every day at 5:30. But and I'm there all throughout the day. But I have 2 houses on the property. I've got a barn where I'll be building my studio, and I do a lot of my work right now. The other house, I just hadn't really spent much time on securing it, and as a result, the video footage show the guy looking inside the barn. And my father-in-law, we just put in these kind of iron gates inside the window. So he saw those and he moved on to an easier target. And on the house, I had not yet done any security work. Other than putting in the basic alarm system, but again, it wasn't armed that day. The other house, like I mentioned, it had security gaps that I just overlooked. And he found an old window in the back of the house where no one could see him. He opened it and he got inside and unfortunately stole a few things. None of us were there, fortunately. And again, this is where we see Murphy's Law working. If something can happen, it will. As I mentioned, I literally forgot to arm the alarm that day, and it was the only day that I forgot to do it. I literally armed it 20 minutes after he left. It shows a timeline when certain things happen. And I just didn't notice it that day when I set the alarm. And again, these kind of things, they really show us weaknesses and holes in whatever systems you're building. Since then, obviously, I've overhauled the house. I put in a bunch of dowel rods in all the windows so they can't be open. I've upgraded all the windows to have sensors so that if they are open, it triggers the alarm. And then I put motion sensors in each room. So if this guy can get in the future, well, I'm going to be impressed. I'll put it that way. The next night, another person came back and looked inside the window. So I had a security camera pointed in his area and he saw it. It turned on and he covered his face and ran off. So what I did Wednesday is I was like, okay, I'm tired of this. I've had this Monday night, Tuesday night. So I went down to the animal shelter on Wednesday and I got a couple of Grand Pyrenees the next day. I'm recording this on Wednesday, October the 2nd. And tomorrow morning, I've got to take the one dog that I did bring home. He's a male. I named him Romulus, and I've got to take him back to get him fixed tomorrow. His sister, Remus, I also named her Romulus and Remus. Pound kept her there until she was fixed. Tomorrow was the first day they had an open surgery. So they both get fixed tomorrow, and I'll pick them both up in the evening. They're obviously going to be in some pain over the next few days, but I'll be watching them, monitoring them, taking care of them until they get back up on their feet and can, roam the property. They're a couple of acres. And I'll be sharing a lot about them in the future on the channel. Again, I'm learning a lot about them as we go. They're both Grand Pyrenees. Romulus, I've had him about a week, and he's an escape artist. I've been amazed how smart he is. He figures things out really quickly. I have a Chihuahua here at our house, and you can do the same thing over and over, and she never figures it out. But this dog, you do it once, and he's got it, and stubborn as heck. But from what I've heard, researching, they're very loyal dogs and big dogs for that. So, I'm excited to have them on the property as my new security system. They have this phenomenal bark that when you hear it, you just don't want to be around it, especially if in the middle of the night you come on the property. So obviously a lot's been happening in the news, in my own life. Again, just getting up to speed on a homestead it seems like every day there's something new that I got to go over there and deal with. And I say all this because I share with you just some of the mistakes I made, things I'm going through to hopefully encourage you that I know right now as preppers, Even if you're new to this, it may be daunting looking at the future and saying, well, I don't know how to start, where to start. But what I've done with this property is I've decided to dive in, just go for it, learn as I go. And it's hard because I make mistakes, things go wrong sometimes. But I'm saying this to be transparent with you, to hopefully encourage you. No matter where you are, take a chance, learn. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. As I always try to say, fall forward. I would rather fall forward than fall backwards. I'd rather go out there, make mistakes, and fall forward and keep going. And so wherever you are in your preparedness journey, whether you've been doing this for years or you're starting out, I would encourage you, do not step back or take your foot off the gas at this time. Obviously, with the events that are playing out in the world and the things that are probably we'll have to deal with here domestically, especially with this election cycle and all the potential fallout, legal wrangling, and a lot of civil unrest, the potential for civil unrest, I should say, between November and January. I think it is all in our best interest, and I don't really have to, I think, convince you at this point, but it's in our best interest to continue to do what we are doing. But my encouragement to you is don't lose hope. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Again, keep moving forward, and that's where I'm at right now. There's days where I'd rather just sit where I'm at and say it's good enough, I've come far enough, but I feel like I've got to move to a new phase in my preparedness journey, and I want to take you on this journey, and I'll share the victories and I'll share the mistakes. As I mentioned earlier, I'd like to provide solutions to these problems and not just a dissection of the problems that we all know exist. And to that end, I'm going to link to a couple of videos here on the side of the screen that discuss how panic buying triggered by supply chain disruptions and external crisis, they can quickly escalate and worsen shortages, and what you can do to stay clear of that frenzy and panic. I'm also going to link to the 3 mistakes preppers make when storing water. When people begin prepping for natural disasters they know they're going to face, water is often overlooked. These floods, though, they wash pollutants and sewage into our water supply. Bacteria levels can skyrocket, water can become toxic, and boil orders are imperative. And I hope you watch these videos to really help understand your water preps. As always, stay safe out there.